Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the AstroCast Live. I am your host, Joseph Sees. This is Matthew Barrera over here, and I don't know if he's going to switch to himself or not,
I am.
but okay.
Hello.
Okay, there we go. So, we've got a big, I don't know about big, we've got an exciting podcast tonight. We're going to be discussing the human conscience, what makes someone human, what makes something alive, what, if artificial intelligence is actually considered, what's up?
We're already going into deep conversations,
of
like
course.
off the
Like,
bat.
off the bat,
We're not
yeah.
even like edging it in.
Nope,
We're just
nope.
going right into it.
We're like not even starting with news stories. Like, I mean, we do have a few news stories that we might go into, but no, we're just diving right into it. So, before we do that, however, that's your cue, Matthew.
Yep.
Before we do, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode of the AstroCast Live, and like the video if you like it. Comment if you have any comments. The chat's open right now if you want to join the conversation. And I'm tired of plugging ourselves, so let's just start talking.
Exactly.
So Matthew, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Why are we here? I'm kidding.
Just suffer.
Okay.
To have fun.
Is that the Mr. E quote?
Yeah.
Is it? What is it? It's like life is endless suffering and then you die?
Suffering
Yep.
and you die.
That one. I like that one. That one's good.
Good.
So, Matthew,
Optimistic.
I have a question for you. What makes something alive?
Well, mine is going to be based off religion, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, so like biologically, what makes something what an organism? What makes something alive?
It can't be. I don't know if I would consider cellular organisms alive. I mean, they are technically alive.
Yeah, biological life.
Biological life. So would I draw the line there, or we could go into more? Yeah, I would draw the line there. It's alive.
Yeah.
Does it have
Okay.
a consciousness? No.
Okay.
So a better question would be, when do you put the line of consciousness on
Okay.
something?
So, with that in mind, do you think viruses are alive?
They behave like cellular organisms, and they have a set
They can self-replicate.
self-replicate. So I think it's alive.
So there's actually a pretty good debate on whether viruses are actually organisms or not, and whether they're actually alive. It's really fascinating, and I encourage you to look it up. But we're not gonna be talking about microorganisms tonight. That was just kind of a introduction. I want to know what you think. Obviously, we watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
You love Star Wars.
Love it.
I love Star Wars. Everybody loves Star Wars, and if you don't, there's something wrong with you. And
I agree.
so, you have the droids in Star Wars. Are the droids, do they have a conscience?
Well, based on their programming, they have individuality. But can I get a little into the lore here? Okay. In episode 1, The Phantom Menace, all the battle droids are controlled by a central computer.
Okay.
So, from that sense, they should act, never say anything. They should all be following orders from the central computer. But in episode 1, they have comedic, like, it probably not intended to show anything or be any deeper than just a comedic event, but they have their own personality, and they're able to interact with others and not based off a central computer. And then later in the Clone Wars, they all have they go away from that system because they realize how it could be exploited. The mothership goes down, everybody goes down, so they all have individual programming and they all have individual personalities and memories. So maybe that is consciousness, if you have your own memories and you can base it off of your future actions based off past actions and learn from that.
So what is conscience then? Because based on that definition, if you have memories, well, your computer technically has memories. It has storage.
That's true.
So is your computer alive? So the thing I'm getting at,
There's an imitation.
is like artificial intelligence, right? How do we know that it has a conscience? Because we can program it to make us think that it's like us. We've already been able to pass the Turing test. So what's the line?
What's the Turing test?
The Turing test? It's a test to see whether or not something is like an artificial intelligence, is if a human can tell that it's talking to a human or a computer. And it's like a blind test, and you just hear audio, I think. or maybe it's text. Different ways
Who
that you
made
can
that?
do it. But
Who made that?
what's his name? Something Turing.
Of course.
Hence the
He named
the
himself,
Turing
yeah.
test. He was the guy who cracked the Enigma during the World War II, I believe. I think so.
Who crossed
You can fact check me on that because you're the fact checker over there.
Got it.
But the thing I'm getting at, and actually that's interesting that we say Turing because Turing was like into artificial intelligence a lot. But there's an interesting movie about him. I forget what it's called, but Benedict Cumberbatch plays Turing. Alexander Turing, I think that's his name. And anyway, I digress. That was getting a little bit off topic. How do we know that something is going to be alive or conscious when we can just program it to trick ourselves, you know?
That's true.
Do you want to know the Google definition?
Sure.
Consciousness, at its simplest, it's sentience or awareness of internal or external existence. So you could say that if it's aware that its own self is
Okay.
existing. So by that definition, the droids know they exist in Star Wars.
Do they?
Yeah, they know it's like, oh, we're not as dumb as those guys. How can I?
Well, but does that mean that they know that they exist? You know? Or is it just like... See, it's tough, you know? Like,
They don't give enough lines for that.
yeah, they
just
don't.
talk to each other.
They don't.
Hi.
Like, because they can follow orders. And
Yeah.
they can do, like, simple talk. And how do we know that they're just not programmed to seem like they do? You know? Although in Star Wars, I think it's pretty obvious that they're supposed to have conscious and they're supposed to have individuality and stuff like that. And they're supposed to be, I mean, basically artificial intelligence. But in real life, I'm talking, like, how do you know that something else has conscience? It's like, well, like, how do we know if a dog has a conscience? How do we know if it's aware of itself? You know?
I think it's
A dog's mind is so simple; it doesn't think about those things. Thinks, oh, eat, do this, like. So, is consciousness based on the complexity of one's like mind? How
I
do I
don't know.
phrase this?
I don't know.
how do I phrase that?
Like the complexity of,
One's mind to comprehend what's around them.
maybe, but it's, I don't know. As you can tell, we're not philosophers.
No.
We're amateurs sitting
Yeah.
behind a desk, but
Joe, even if we were philosophers, this would be a hard question.
It's not possible.
I'm looking at websites right now to see
Okay.
what they say.
Well, here, switch back to me.
All right.
so I have a follow-up question. If let's given the premise, let's just say that okay, here's my question. How do we know that we have conscience?
Yeah, we're basing it all on ourselves because we're very self-centered, and probably if there are aliens, they're probably thinking they have consciousness, and us humans, like dogs, have very simple-minded ways of thinking. Simple. Oh, they like simple pleasures. Oh, they have these basic emotions. They don't think on the way we do, so they're not really alive, and therefore it's okay to exterminate them.
Well, we laugh, but I hope that's not a thought process going on. But
We have comments.
oh, okay, we'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
So, like, where do you draw the line? You know, because dogs have emotions. Like, beyond a doubt, dogs have emotions. I've seen my Sammy was my dog's name is Sammy. She was sleeping under my desk, but now she's off doing something else. But like, I can tell when she's happy or sad or angry or hungry. You know, like, she has emotions.
It's almost like too simple for us. By that
Well, we have
definition,
those simple emotions too.
so that's where the similarities stop. What goes beyond that is knowing that we exist and trying, like, maybe curiosity. No, if we go just to monkeys, they have the same emotions. Did we say they're conscious?
I don't know.
That's why I was like,
I don't know.
Are we the only ones that are considered conscious?
I have no idea. I've always thought that elephants. I've always read that elephants are aware of their own existence, but I don't know how they test for that. You know, It's like, how do you just ask an elephant, are you aware of yourself? You know, it's like,
Don't don't they have complex social interactions where they
I
go back to their
think
dead?
so, yeah. And they have an excellent memory, and they can use tools. There's a story of elephants that they were in like a preservation, and the caretaker that would go to feed them died one day, and the elephants tore down an electric fence using some like handmade tools that they just fashioned with their trunks. They tore down an electric fence and walked to his house, never have been there before, and like held a funeral for him.
Wow.
All elephants.
I have a study here.
Okay.
It says in 2012, the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness crystallized a scientific consensus that humans are not the only conscious beings,
Okay.
and that non-human animals, including all mammals and birds, and many other creatures, including octopuses, possess neurological substrates complex enough to support consciousness.
Wow.
So I want to read this.
Yeah, yeah.
What does it mean?
That is really interesting, man. Yeah, read up on that, and I'll just kind of stall for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, you can read the comment.
Oh, yeah, I'll read the comment, sure. So, we have a comment from Joshua B. saying, something is alive when something can think or act for itself. Another indicator is the display of emotion based on one's character. Well, it depends what you're talking about, because, like, biological alive, like, can be a microorganism, and that doesn't have emotions, and it can't really think, as far as I'm aware. But then again, what is thinking, you know? What is... And even on that level, what are emotions? It's like... You get to a point where you have to you have to really have a hard definition, like a scientific and repeatable definition for these words, for these definitions. And it's just hard questions, and that is exactly why we're asking them tonight. We actually have another chat, and I'm gonna take this right now so I can give Matthew some more time. Take for example Ultron. Wouldn't you consider him to be alive, since he can think for himself, take care of himself, and display emotion? I don't know.
That was fictional, though.
It was fictional, so yeah. And he is played by a real life person.
Exactly.
So I guess I would consider him alive. But see, I don't know. It's just weird, because creating machines to imitate, you know, biology is kind of outside of our purview of how humans can create life. So I don't know.
So in the study, they judge it through 6 different categories. And so the categories are richness, which is for vision, richness for touch, unity, temporality, selfhood, and I got to read up on this one. But these are the categories, and then there's a big debate on the levels of consciousness that animals can have, and the scientists believe, okay, should there be a threshold and everything else is conscious, everything's not, or is there varying levels of consciousness for animals and its complexity? So
Wow.
yeah, it gets complicated. I could read the first one. Our first dimension of variation is richness. The P stands for perceptual richness. Animals vary in the level of detail at which they could consciously perceive aspects of their environment. Animals that make fine-grained conscious discriminations in a particular sense of modality, vision, can be said to have a P richness experience in the modality. Any measure of P richness is specific to the sense of modality, so we should not refer to any species' overall level of richness. Okay. And they also have a graph. Okay.
I see that, yeah.
I don't know if you can see the graph, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's how they level it, which is very interesting. A species might have richer perceptual experiences than another one in modality, but less rich experiences in different modality. For example, given their sensory abilities, elephants are likely to have much richer olfactory experience than humans, but less richly detailed visual experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like your senses.
Their senses. They have height in here, but not visually. That was just the first one, and they go on for 6 paragraphs. Of course, they have to be detailed in how they do it.
Man,
The second dimension is evaluative richness. Some conscious emotions such as pain, fear, grief, and anxiety These are all affective experiences with negative valence.
Mhm.
Others, such as pleasures, joy, comfort, love, feel good. These are affective experiences with positive valence.
Valence.
All valence. Thank you. All affective responsive have positive, negative valence. Valence provides an evaluative common currency for the use in effective-based decision making. Oh, it goes in deep. It goes in deep.
Man, that's
Integration at a time. Conscious experience in healthy adult humans is highly unified. They have a single perspective of the world, and everything of which you are consciously aware is part of that perspective. All experiences generated by their brain have a common subject. There are not two or more subjects honed within the same skull. Exactly what I was thinking in my head, huh?
What does that mean?
No clue,
Here,
Joe.
read it again.
From the start?
Just that part about the human people.
All the experiences generated by your brain have a common subject. There are not two or more subjects.
What do they define subject as?
You have a single perspective on the world, and everything of which you are consciously aware is part of that perspective.
Huh. Can I disagree with, where is this?
Disagree with Trends in Cognitive Science by
Oxford, Harvard. Did you
Jonathan
say?
Birch. What did I say in the beginning? Who was it from?
It was
If I
from
go
some
back.
university.
Cambridge Declaration.
Cambridge.
Yeah, Cambridge.
Well, I'm gonna sound really stupid, but I kind of disagree with Cambridge.
You disagree with Cambridge?
Yeah, just a little bit.
How they define it?
Can't you? Well, here, switch it to me.
Yeah, sure.
Humans have the ability to see from multiple perspectives. At least, they could be just defining it as something
Maybe we're
different.
reading it wrong.
They could be defining it as something different, but I mean, you can see you can try to see something from someone else's perspective or from a different perspective. That's how we can usually find common ground and get over disagreements, you know? Like, for example, well, I'm trying to find an example, you know, an anecdote to
disagree
prove
anything?
my argument.
It's anything. It's everyday life. We always
Yeah,
disagree
but
with
like, let's see.
There's no-
Well,
there's no-
we have this conversation. Maybe they mean based on our sensory information, you know, how we perceive the world.
Oh,
Like
that makes
like
sense.
for example, I see green as what I perceive green as, and I can't perceive it as something else. But I guess that kind of makes sense. And I mean, unless
Where's
you're
our
under
split
the
brain?
influence of medication, because then you could definitely see green as something
That is
else,
true.
you know. So I don't know. I don't know, man.
Oh.
Okay.
Let me read this.
Yeah.
Let me go to C2.
It says here, could an octopus have 2 or even 9 conscious perspectives on the world? Current evidence, because they're talking about how the brain, the brain is split. I had a moment there, and how the same question could be asked for non-human animals. Birds are in particularly interesting in their respect because they have natural split brains.
Well, so what does that mean? Split
They have
brain?
no structure akin to a corpus callosum. I can't. So many
What
words.
does that say?
Akin to
Corpus.
the corpus callosum,
Corpus callosum.
connecting the 2 hemispheres of the dorsal pallium, which is homologous. Oh my God, to the cortex in mammals. Could every bird be a pair of conscious subjects? Oh my God.
Whoa. The birds aren't
True
real, man.
consciousness?
The birds aren't real. They're government drones, and that's the proof.
No, it's weird to think.
It's weird
It's
to think they have two.
like, so maybe that's like multiple personality disorder, where you have like, you know,
Two. Yeah.
but I don't know if that's necessarily physical and biological, more of psychological. So that's, my brain hurts already, and we haven't even started pretty
I
much.
didn't even know that was possible. Or that was a thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Challenges for multi-dimensional framework. You ready for this one?
Oh, okay.
A multi-dimensional approach to animal consciousness faces several key challenges. One is to find dimensions at the right grain of analysis. If our goal were to capture all interesting variations in conscious states, we would never have enough dimensions. We have to be pragmatic. The 5 dimensions discussed previously are intended as top-level categories that can help us coordinate an inquiry into the finer grained variations. As noted in the sections on p-richness and e-richness, there may well be ways of resolving our top-level dimensions into new spaces, further finer grained dimensions. So what they're saying is that consciousness is very complex, and the ways we did it was just so it could save us the hassle of naming all
It's
the other simplifying, generalizing everything and joining things together in order to determine what consciousness is. But we can never be sure. I'm pretty sure we can never be sure what consciousness is. If we ever answer that question,
guess this is how we know that we're conscious, because we're questioning our own consciousness.
Yeah.
So I guess there's your answer for why humans are conscious. But
Wait, hold on.
yeah.
everybody naturally distinguish themselves as humans from animals, even though we're all animals technically. But what really distinguishes us from animals? Like in everybody's head's like, I'm above them, but why? Intelligence.
Yeah.
Because we're this intelligent, we're no longer in the same playing field.
Yeah.
We've conquered the entire Earth.
Yeah.
So, is it just our intelligence that makes us conscious? And that's just based on our realm of our criteria. We move the criteria to, like, we go back to the alien conversation. The aliens, oh look, they're lower. They're not conscious.
Well, aliens could be on a lower intelligence level than us.
That is true.
You know, and we could.
Are they conscious?
Well, so here, this is an interesting. This is an interesting point, and this actually brings up Halo. And an idea that comes from that, the mantle of responsibility. The mantle of responsibility shelters all. You know, so the whole idea, for those of you who aren't Halo fans, is that the precursors bestowed the mantle of responsibility for the Milky Way galaxy upon humans, and the Forerunners didn't like it, so they had a war with the precursors, and that goes on to the Halo lore. But this whole thing, the idea of the mantle of responsibility is, well, it's also kind of complicated, but basically one species is in charge of the entire galaxy and is in charge of keeping or protecting life, basically, and basically being the caretakers of the universe. And the Forerunners took up that mantle for a while, and then the humans took up that mantle for a while, and then right now in Halo Infinite, if you haven't played the game, spoiler alert, it's kind of in a disarray kind of state because of the whole Cortana thing, but I digress. My whole point to this being, we could be the first, intelligent species in the universe, which I doubt. It's funny.
We ourselves define what that means.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know. We could be the most intelligent species in the universe. We could be towards the bottom. If you're familiar with our channel, you'd probably know the Great Filter and the Grabby Aliens theory, which basically says that humans are at least the first 10% and at most the first 1% of life in the universe. So with that being said, how likely is it that we are the most intelligent? And the answer to that is I have no idea, and I don't even know how we could tell. But for example, if we were to go out and colonize our solar system and conquer our entire solar system, let's say we find life on other planets and it's not intelligent. Well, then we would be, going along with the Halo thing, we would be responsible for sheltering and protecting the life within our solar system.
Why are we responsible for that?
Because we are the more intelligent being. That's the whole mantle of responsibility. It's bestowed upon the higher.
To protect it.
Yeah, because they're the ones who can. Basically.
But
Just because we can, why do we do that? Why do we?
well, honestly,
It'd just be the right thing to do.
the right thing to do.
And then we could jump back to
Religion.
why is that the right thing to do, and why is morality?
Yep.
And we keep going in circles, bro, and
Yep.
we never find the answer. All the questions we're asking, there's no clear answer.
No, but
That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, these are good questions to ask, though. It gets your brain working, and honestly, let's go down this concept of the mantle of responsibility. Let's say, we humans here on Earth don't really do that great of a job, honestly, just because we aren't really unified as a species. We're unified in nations right now. If we were to someday unify all as a species, then, sure, we could probably attain that. But, I mean, right now, just with the way people treat just other people in general, you
Just
expect
slight
us to
differences.
you expect us to take care of, a planet, a solar system, a galaxy. So, and this is one of my favorite lines from the Bible, or parables, if you will. And I forget the number, but it's take the plank out of your own eye before helping your brother with the speck in his. How are you going to help someone else when you can't help yourself? How are you going to tell someone how to live their life if your life is crumbling? Like, how are you going to tell someone how are you going to tell someone to stop sinning when you yourself are a sinner? Stuff like that. Hypocrite. And honestly, I kind of feel like the human race is kind of hypocritical because,
Always.
well, I mean, it's kind of in our nature.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
When are we going to unify as one? We all throughout time, all these human consciousness, we've always fought against each other. It feels like human nature.
Yeah. I was about to say we were pretty close after World War II, but I don't think we were.
Nope.
Because,
No.
yeah, no.
Germany was in collapse. We didn't help them out. Instead, we just took more money from them, exploited.
Well, no, we split them half between us and half between the Soviets.
Exactly. It was this way.
The closest we've come, actually, was probably during World War II.
But there's a clear
there were
two
clear
sides.
3 sides.
3 sides.
Yeah, the pacifist Switzerland.
Pacifist.
You
Well,
always have a
so-
Switzerland.
We went from. I mean, they're unified because we have.
It was
Come
about.
by me.
It was it was this one section against this other section, and that was probably the closest we've ever gotten.
We went from like how many nations are there in the world right now?
I don't know, hundreds.
Hundreds.
Probably around
To
300.
like feeling like 3. It's close.
Yeah.
Feeling like 3, but at the same time having our own distinct.
And we don't really know because we weren't there, and who knows? It probably felt a lot different than that, and who knows the actual levels of unity between all of the nations at that time. I'm sure there's historians that could probably tell us, and if somehow you find yourself watching this video, feel free to let us know. But
195.
195? Okay, I was way. I said way too many. I said 300. Yeah, 300, 195, same thing. Is that what you said?
195.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought there were more than that last time. It doesn't matter.
Well, we could go into hold on.
It doesn't matter.
We go into the unidentified countries or those who other countries don't identify or.
I wonder if Taiwan's on that list.
Depends what country you ask.
Yeah, China says no. Everyone else says yes. Oh, unless you're the WHO. The WHO says no. Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out.
I got you.
But
The following 15 countries, nations, recognize Taiwan as a sovereign country. So only 15.
only 15.
Guatemala, Honduras, Haiti, Paraguay, Nicaragua,
Why is it all the?
Eswatini, Tuvalu, Nauru, Saint Vincent, and the Grenadines, Saint Kitts and Nevis, Saint Lucia, Marshall Islands, Palau, blah blah blah.
Marshall Islands are U.S. territory.
Then why is it saying this?
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stall for time for you. But yeah, that's the whole point I was getting at with the whole mantle of responsibility thing. Is it sounds cool and all, and it's definitely is the right thing to do, but how are we going to do that when we can't even help ourselves? Especially in the state of the world right now, but I won't get into that. It's interesting. Hey Matthew, what's going on with the stream? It was a little glitchy just a second ago.
Maybe I'm loading a bunch of things.
Oh, are you loading a bunch of things?
No. No.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of countries that recognize Taiwan.
Yeah, I would doubt it.
Even-
Because
even the US.
China's got it. What?
I don't see the US here.
No. Surely the U.S. officially recognizes Taiwan. Okay, well, while he's looking that up, I would be really surprised if we didn't. Uh, I know the UN, I don't think does. I wonder if do they even have a spot in the Olympics, or I don't.
In
Yeah, they do.
keeping with its China policy, the U.S. does not support Taiwan independence, but it does support Taiwan's membership in appropriate international organizations, such as the World Trade Organization.
I think it's because
Joe, Taiwan is supposed to become part of China after 100 years because the British used to control it. And then, right, am I right on this one?
No, so
Is it-
after I forget when it was, but during when China was becoming communist, they took the non-communist like government out and made Taiwan, and then for the longest time Taiwan was recognized as China. But then it eventually became its own country, and then China was invited to the UN. I want to say that was around World War II or maybe a little before.
I was thinking of Hong Kong.
Yeah, you're thinking of Hong Kong.
It was-
That was yeah.
It was taken by the British, and
Yeah,
they made a
that's-
100-year,
that's- yeah.
100-year. In 100 years, they'll transfer to China, and China doesn't want to wait,
Yeah.
and that's why there was a Hong Kong protest. Not Hong Kong. Sorry,
Right,
protest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Hong Kong.
It was Hong Kong, yeah.
So, I'm very surprised by that the
Taiwan's
U.S.
not
doesn't
recognized
recognize that. That is, yeah, that's really, wow. That's
There's only 15.
quite
nations.
hypocritical of us, if I do say so myself. And I'm quite ashamed of our country that we don't do that.
Well,
Do we recognize the?
We literally have troops in Taiwan.
Mhm. Do we
How do we not
recognize
recognize them
the?
as a country?
What massacre was it?
Tiananmen Square.
No, I know we recognize that,
Um,
but it's the one
the
one
Armenian
Cameron
genocide?
references all the time.
Armenian genocide.
Armenian
Yeah,
genocide.
we
Do
do.
we do?
I think we do. We better.
Does the US,
We totally went on a tangent here. How did we get here?
genocide?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
Let's see, because I know we're allied with we do.
The United States recognizes the Armenian genocide through 2 congressional resolutions passed by
Alright.
both houses.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was about to say, if we didn't do that, like, what are we
is
doing?
that? Well,
The U.S. isn't perfect, not by a long shot, but
Poor
no country's
natives.
perfect. But I'm still pretty ashamed of us that we don't recognize Taiwan as a nation.
Do you know how many, like,
We're probably gonna get kicked off of YouTube now for calling Taiwan a nation.
free speech?
Yeah, YouTube doesn't care about free speech.
We're not doing any terrorist acts. We're not doing any
Well,
profanities.
yeah,
We're just stating what's
I bet
happening
you
in the
this
world.
one's gonna get the special treatment like the other one did.
It's gonna have like that 3-minute section.
Where it's
Remove
just-
it.
Yeah, yeah. I bet you.
nah.
We'll see,
We're
we'll see,
fine, We're fine.
we'll see. We'll find out. But anyway, let's go back to what we were talking about because we took a wild tangent there. And I wanna ask you
Okay.
a question. I've been doing that a lot, but I want to ask you another question. Do you think, let's say we find alien life, and let's say it's the same level of intelligence as we are, like maybe we don't know that, maybe they don't know that, but like objectively speaking, they're the same level of intelligence as us. And let's say that this alien species is in our solar system, just for the hell of it. And let's say also that they are grabby like us.
Okay.
Okay? So given that premise, what do you think the course of action is if we meet them on their planet, if we meet them on our planet, or if we meet them on neutral territory?
What do we want to meet in neutral territory to not provoke anything?
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying like when we find them, when we run into them just by happenstance, what do you think would happen?
Well, since space is not a nation's territory or anything, there won't be any like influences. Wouldn't we always reach for peace? Like astronauts are like, I
do
would
you
think
think?
so. I think the astronauts
Or
would
do you
reach for
think the
peace.
astronauts would be like,
and
oh my
then-
gosh, I have to defend myself, and
Well, the astronauts clearly can't defend themselves in space. We don't have guns yet. You want them to
That's
have
true.
guns? You want them to
That's
have
true.
guns?
Well, I don't know.
Make it more interesting. They'd be like, okay, hello. They'll try to make contact. First, they'll either contact the home base and be like, we see these things. Do we? Of course, they're gonna say, don't approach.
I bet
Right?
you. I bet you the scientist people would say we need a sample. I bet you.
Risk your life for a sample. Kill
I
it.
don't think they
kill
would
it.
risk your life for a sample, but I bet you if like a probe found it, they would immediately send a mission there.
All the nations will come together for war. Just kidding. Because humans don't like uncertainty, and we're gonna build huge
Yeah.
weapons
Uh-huh.
and just have it on our back of our back.
Yeah,
or
like the
back
ace up our sleeve.
Yeah,
just in
we're gonna be
case.
like, we want peace while having a hand behind our back.
Well, I think it was from an Iron Man movie. You know, peace just means being the guy with the bigger stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting question. See, if they come to our planet before we can get to theirs,
We'll all be scared.
it would be really interesting. And so this is really interesting, and this is you know, NASA, and I don't want to get into conspiracy theories because I'm not a real conspiracy theory guy, but
The flat
NASA
earther.
recently brought on some, I think they were pastors or like religious people from, I think, the Catholic Church and maybe the Protestant Church too, to ask how people would react to finding out that there's life on other planets. And so it's almost like, well, NASA, what do you know, you know? But at the same time, I don't think they're doing that. I think it's just because they just want to know, you know, just in case they find something. But I know there's definitely conspiracy theories that NASA's hiding aliens from us, but I mean, who knows? It could be, but I doubt it. I doubt that much of a scientific discovery would be able to be kept secret for very long. And definitely not for like 50 years, which is what the conspiracies are. But I digress. Back to the point I was making. That was a tangent again. If we were to meet them on their planet, I wonder if they would also get defensive, you know?
Well, you establish that they have the same level of
Yeah.
everything with
Yeah.
us, so they react the same way, unless they don't have the same experiences as us. Human nature, maybe they have a different nature where like, oh, everybody's peaceful, or they all hate each other,
Like us.
like us. But like we hate each other to an extent. It's just like, oh, you're kind of different from me. You should be in that corner.
It's more of, I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I don't really hate anybody. There's things that people do that really make me sad and angry, but I don't really wish ill upon anyone. I think everyone deserves, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, no matter who that person is.
Unless their happiness takes away from others.
Yeah, unless they infringe upon the rights of others, which in case, you know, that's when the justice has to come in. But it's, you know, it's not like a, and who knows, I might be too idealistic, but that's just my philosophy. I don't generally have hate in my heart for anyone. And I would hope that if we were to meet aliens, that the person meeting them wouldn't just immediately, out of fear, retaliate, but have actual courage to. It takes courage to not, you know, to stand your ground, but not, you know, not just out of fear attack, unprovoked. I would be interested to see what would happen if we met aliens. Like, let's say, I mean, it would never happen because space is so vast, but let's say we just literally ran into another spaceship, like in space. Like, our spaceship just happened to, like, come upon another spaceship from an alien race. You
We
know?
would all be astonished. We'll all take photos. We would all
And then
try
they
to.
just pass
We'll
by.
try to make. You would try to make contact, to an extent, and then come back to base and come back with a bigger fleet, and meet them.
Right? Leap again.
Well, it would take a while for us to muster up a fleet for space because we don't have a fleet, you know,
Yeah.
for space. That's the one thing that, I mean, no nation really has. We have satellites, but that's not really a fleet.
So those stars for.
It would be interesting to see what a fleet in space would look like, because we have all sorts of sci-fi renditions of it. But I would be interested to see what that would look like in real life.
I feel like our sci-fi perspective of it is
Probably
like
would.
it's like an ocean battle, like a sea battle. We see as
Yeah.
like, oh, we have a fleet here, we have a fleet here, but this is three-dimensional space
Yeah.
with nothing going against you. Like it's your momentum carries on. Of course, there's no force acting upon
Yeah.
you, so everything will be way different than what you see in fiction. Way different.
Yeah, the fighter planes, literally, instead of, you don't have lift, you don't have a force acting that way and that way, keeping you, and so to turn, you don't even have to do this. You can do that, but technically you could just have a gyroscope and like turn the engine, but you would instead of just turning like that, you would go,
Yeah,
like
you,
that.
You carry your.
Yeah. you would be drifting pretty much.
It's not like in Star Wars with like, and they're like dogfighting like they were.
Powerful enough engine, but
Maybe.
you'd have to make really sharp turns.
Exactly.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see.
Every time I see a space battle for Star Wars, it feels like it's atmospheric.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Every time.
yeah. Just because of the fighters.
Yeah.
The I feel like they do a really good job with like the bigger ships though,
Yeah.
because they don't move fast.
Nope.
I mean, except for light speed, but that's impossible. So,
They're always like.
yeah, they're really slow. And I feel like they do a really good job at that because that's what it would be like. And in reality, they're probably moving pretty fast.
You know what I want to know the math for? The math of the Death Star going through hyperspace, because it does that, right? In Rogue One, they were like a large object's coming out of hyperspace. It was a Death Star. Just coming in. How does that work?
I
does that
have
work?
no idea. Well, and in Star Wars lore, hyperspace, you can only travel on the certain lanes, and I think the lore and legends is like it was actually set up by something else that no one really
But-
knows.
It's the target, the computers on board calculate.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to run into a star.
Oh, so
But
that's
in-
what you're saying.
But in reality, space is so vast and everything is so spaced out that wouldn't really
Well, gravity wells, yeah.
gravity wells. Okay,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you're navigating in space, you wouldn't run into things as prevalent as you see in like
Well, there's
media.
space debris. You could totally, and even just dust. Dust could tear your ship apart if it's not made of the right thing.
Yeah.
And especially depending on what the dust is made of, like just debris in space would be killer. And there's tons of it, and we don't know where any of it is. In terms of the hyperspace from Star Wars, the reason they calculate around stuff is because you have to stay clear of gravity wells, just the influence of gravity.
Yeah.
And so that's why like the end of hyperspace lanes usually end at gravity wells, because they can't travel through them.
Just like that.
That one episode of the Clone Wars where they just hyperspace without
Yeah.
calculating, and they get sucked in by a sun's gravitational pull.
Yep. Which the whole thing with
You're
the whole
talking
thing
about-
the whole
think
thing
about
with
it.
the Last Jedi, where they just go into hyperspace and just nuke the one ship. It was a cool effect, but come on, why didn't everyone do that before? So I don't know.
Let's put astromechs to large rectangles of mass and just
Yeah.
ram it into things.
Yeah.
All that momentum, all that speed.
Could you imagine how fast that ship is accelerating?
Wait.
Why don't
The thing is, I think in lore they don't actually accelerate. They just kind of go into the lane, and the lane is moving.
They
You know. Yeah, it's more of a dimensional warp than it is you're actually traveling faster, I do believe. And it's I think that's how they get around moving faster than the speed of light. Because you're not really speeding up, you're just entering a lane that's already moving faster. It's like jumping in a river, is my understanding.
Canon says.
What does canon say?
hyperspace was an alternate dimension that could
Yeah.
only be reached by traveling at or faster than the speed of light.
Oh, so they actually
Hyperdrives-
do accelerate.
Yeah, hyperdrives enable starships to travel through hyperspace lanes across great distances, enabling exploration.
Wow.
So they just go to another dimension.
I would. How do they accelerate to the speed of light that fast, man? Do you know the amount of energy that would take?
It's,
That's
you want to hear the
crazy.
sci-fi terms?
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Hyperdrives manipulate hypermatter particles in
Oh,
order to
okay, of
thrust
course,
a
yes.
starship into hyperspace while preserving the ship's mass and energy profile. This shortened travel distance significantly, like blah blah blah, reducing joy time. Okay, the vessel's ability to travel through hyperspace depended on its equipment with a hyperspace engine. Failure, cutting power. The employ interdictor vessels disable hyperspace specific. Oh yeah, I always loved how the Empire was like, oh, the rebels keep running away from us in hyperspace. Let's make a gravity well generator star
Oh,
destroyer,
yeah.
and they were able to suck everybody in. It's like you can't run anymore.
The engineers are like, let's make them die.
Yeah. Making an artificial gravity well is actually a really interesting concept. I'd love to talk more about that because, like, how do you do it? And this is the whole idea of how do you get gravity in space, like especially on like a spaceship, the clever concept that I like is you just have a ring or a torus and you just spin it and then you just walk on the outside of the ring, or the inside of the outside, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I got it right here.
Okay.
We're pulling from Wikipedia. A gravity well projector was a powerful device affixed to an interdictor vessel used to pull ships out of hyperspace, as a ship could not usually enter hyperspace within a planet's gravitational pull. The gravity wells projected mimicked the effect of creating a strong artificial gravity well known as an interdiction field. Gravity well projectors were first theorized by... we're getting to the lore now. This is all the lore. Oh boy.
So gravity wells is a really interesting concept because and Halo has gravity wells too, like on Requiem. So it's just a really interesting concept because how do you make artificial mass? You know, that's the only way to manipulate. Well, there's two ways to manipulate gravity, because gravity is really just the effect of the warping of space-time, which is the fabric of our universe. So what if you can warp space-time without using mass? That'd be an interesting concept. I think a NASA engineer or someone affiliated with stuff like that actually proposed an idea for a warp drive where it would warp the space behind you like this and then the space in front of you kind of like this, and it kind of would work like as a pressure difference and pull you forward faster than the speed of light, but even though you're not traveling. That's a really cool concept. I don't know how they would make the artificial mass,
Who did that?
you know, or artificial gravity in order to warp space-time. I don't know. That'd be an interesting topic. Well, it's the same topic we're talking about, but
Let me see.
MIT Technical Review. Mass can be created inside graphene, says physicist.
Oh no, not graphene.
What's wrong?
What's wrong, Joe?
I don't know if any of you have watched the Timcast or Timcast Live with Tim Pool, but he one of his friends who's on the podcast, Ian, is like obsessed with graphene, and every time, like, it never fails. Every podcast, it's like they have guests on, and they'll be like, or Ian to the guests will just say, "So have you ever heard of graphene? It's like this," and it's just like it's just. It makes me laugh every time I hear graphene now. I can't take it seriously.
So don't take this seriously, this study right here.
Well, you could, but graphene
Seems to be, at least to me, just like the MacGuffin for real life. You know, like the everything particle. Just it's a bit like how Bitcoin or like blockchain is becoming. You know, it's just like, oh, we should make self-driving cars into a blockchain, or we should do this with a blockchain. It's like, you know, it's not the solution to everything. And I feel like graphene's kind of becoming just the buzzword. You know, just to be like, I don't know, just, oh, well, we'll make these graphene nanotubes and then we'll make flying cars. It's like, so, I mean, graphene is pretty cool, the structure of it, but I don't know if it's really the end-all be-all or the, the fix or the solution for everything.
The gravity wells on like the Interdictor Star Destroyer are like huge circles. You've seen it before, right? And I feel like it gives off, it warps space time basically around it, and it's like a field. That's all I was thinking about when you were saying that. But that's all I have to add.
Gravitational fields are just the warping of space time.
So it just does that somehow.
And so it's so trippy to imagine it. Like, you can imagine a bowling ball on a sheet, like pulling the sheets down. But how do you picture that in 3 dimensions? It's like pulling space to a smaller point, you know? And that's the whole thing with black holes are really weird, and then wormholes are even weirder because that's pulling stuff to a point, and then there's another point that it's pulling to that are connected. It's like in 2 dimensions it really makes sense, but in 3 dimensions it's really hard to visualize, and I think that's because you're warping space-time, which is technically 4 dimensions. It's pretty hard to visualize because of that. So I don't know. That gets into a whole nother topic of dimensional theory and dimensional warp, which I'm actually working on a theory about that, and Matthew knows that, but I haven't touched that in a while. I should break that back out. But
This,
Just send it to NASA. They'll tear it up for you.
yeah, do we have any more chats?
no.
No? Okay. So then we're actually getting pretty close to 9 o'clock. Is there anything else you wanted to...
I wanted to mention whatever happened to that Tesla. Is it Tesla? No. Sorry, SpaceX thing where you can send your picture to space or something.
Oh yeah, I sent my picture on that. They were
I
supposed to
couldn't
send
do
it to the International Space Station.
Did they ever do that?
I think so. That was with Bob and Doug on the Dragon capsule on that very first mission that everybody watched, and then all the other missions nobody watched. SpaceX has been sending a lot of stuff to space on a different note. Like, they're on fire. They've been doing like back-to-back launches with their reusable rockets. SpaceX is gonna probably be the first to do interplanetary travel.
Oh yeah, it says this is like you said, it went up with Bob and Doug, where they're gonna is accepting contributions for a giant mosaic of images.
Yep.
It was such a good thought out publicity stunt because that's
Yeah.
all I saw from the news. A bunch of teenagers were getting into it, and people were saying on Instagram, it's like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's do this." Because who doesn't want
Your picture to be in space.
be in space?
Yeah.
Just the concept of that.
Even though it's just Earth. It's just the orbit of Earth. So I think they're technically still in the upper atmosphere.
But you could say that it was in space.
Yeah.
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah, I have my picture somewhere in there.
But if you really look at it, Joe, you can't distinguish
can't
a
see anything,
single
Yeah,
image.
it looks like the world.
But what, like 3 pixels, you contributed to be in space, Joe.
No, it's way more than that. It's a really high quality image.
Yeah.
You just have to zoom in far enough. Like, it'd be really cool if the mosaic was like the size of the Empire State Building, but you can't bring that into space. But
What do you think is the extent of how big we could send an object to space is?
Ooh, that's
Right now.
fascinating because
you can build stuff in space. You know, you can make a dry dock in space, like, or even build it on the moon. You know,
Or like
With
NASA's
gravity.
space mission
you
where we
could
make
send
a
stuff pieces at a time, and that's what they did with the International Space Station. But you can literally build stuff in space so that you don't have to even worry about gravity, and then you don't even have to worry about taking off from Earth.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and I really like that concept. And if we were gonna build something, that's how we would build it.
So if we want to make a hotel in space, we just send pieces,
well, the same
a
way we build the
docking.
International Space Station.
I feel like in my lifetime there's gonna be a hotel in space.
Oh, definitely.
There's gonna be a hotel in space.
I bet you
They're gonna send a new space station.
That
I
one's
bet
old
you.
already.
Well, it's really old, and
That's why.
it's still state of the art though. They keep
It's still-
sending new stuff
yeah.
up, and they keep upgrading it, and that's gonna be up there for a long time. Because they
We're
keep
gonna go.
maintaining it. But I bet you the U.S. because China's already sent its own space station up in space.
Yeah.
I bet you the U.S. is gonna do the same thing.
Oh, and so?
Yeah, I bet you eventually, and I bet you Russia will do the same thing.
We did it before with other nations to unify everybody
Yeah.
and to have this, but now nations
We're
are
doing
wanting
it
their
around the
own.
moon again with I think it's the European Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency with the Artemis program.
I haven't heard a lot about NASA's moon mission.
There was just something on space.com about it.
Really?
Yeah, they.
Oh.
I think they're still on schedule for spring 2022, aren't they?
They had development delays, so
yeah, but now
as
it's
early as
spring
March,
2022.
March 2022,
Yeah.
4 days ago.
Oh, that's
So is that soon? That is soon.
That's really soon. It's
That's
happening
really
like
soon.
this year. This what? How many months?
That's
Like
just a few
4,
months.
5?
That's 2 months.
March is 2 months away.
Oh, I'm just thinking about something else. I swear.
No, March is like a month and a half away.
Mhm.
Look into that. Are they really close? I want to find that out.
I would
There's a
love to watch a moon
2022
mission.
space calendar on CNET. Give me a second.
Okay.
Space calendar, major missions, NASA, James Webb Space Telescope was
Well,
launched.
that's already up there.
Blah blah blah. They just January 6th, SpaceX kicked off 2022 with the Starlink launch.
Yep.
January 24th was the James Webb. February 18th, Perseverance rover's anniversary of landing on Mars. Mid-March ? Rocket Lab launches NASA Capstone mission. Mid-March, NASA launches Artemis 1.
There you go. So mid-March.
March 31st, Axiom 1 space tourism mission may launch.
Oh.
This is a very
Interesting.
sci-fi picture. Let me put this
Yeah.
up.
You know what? I tell you what. We'll save that link and we'll put it in the description for everyone to look at.
April.
If I don't care when it is, whenever NASA's doing their mission back to the moon on Artemis, we're doing a live podcast of it
Yeah.
because we just have to.
April 15th, SpaceX Crew 4 may blast off.
Oh, so that's for the International Space Station, right?
What is
Boeing Starliner's second flight attempt.
Boeing Starliner. I've heard of it. I'm not actually sure what that is.
Josh caught it.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what that is. You want to read that last chat, and then I think it's
Closing off time?
closing out.
All right, we got our last chat, Josh. Perhaps before we can answer the gravity question, we should figure out what dark energy is or dark matter. Well, Josh, we've tried already.
Dark matter doesn't really have anything to do with space-time. Dark matter is just the unknown particles, and it could be many different particles. It's just some kind of unknown mass that's weighing down the edges of galaxies, so that the edges are actually slower than the insides. And let's see, dark energy does actually affect space-time in the sense that it stretches it. So maybe there's like an inverse dark energy particle that we could shrink space-time with. I don't know.
Russia and the European Space Agency are sending a rover to Mars September 20th.
Oh,
Rosalind Franklin.
cool.
I didn't know this.
Is it on me? Oh, it is on me.
Yeah.
So, this actually just gave me an idea, and we'll just end with this. What if dark energy is just negative mass? You know?
But how can you have not? How can there be negative something?
Well, you can have negative charge.
You can.
Yeah,
Let's
and
look at
electrons.
that, yeah.
Negative charge?
Oh, negative charge. Okay. I was like,
Negative and
what's that?
positive charges?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What if you could have the same? What if you have the same thing with mass, and that's why the universe is expanding? And maybe that's what dark energy is. I don't know.
Send it to
I'm
NASA.
probably wrong. But I digress. It is that time again, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have not already, comment, because YouTube really likes comments for some reason, and it'll make the videos more reachable. So if you have something to say, put it in the comment section below, and if you are so inclined to share our podcast to everyone you know, then we would be much obliged. But at the end of the day, we do this for fun, and you don't really have to. So I think that's it from us, and we're going to sign off tonight. So I've been Joseph Sees, and